Welcome to this explainer. Have you ever actually stopped to wonder how experts study the words, the phrases, and the grammar that literally comes out of our mouths every single day? Well, I kind of like to think of linguists as, well, language detectives, right? Because instead of just sitting around in some stuffy room dictating what we should or shouldn't say, they're actually out there on the ground. They're investigating how everyday communication actually works out in the real world.
Okay, let's dive into this. Do people actually say whom very often? I mean, it's one of those classic grammar mysteries, isn't it? We all learn about it in school, and we totally stress over putting it in an important email. But how do linguists actually know whether a word or a specific grammar pattern like this is common in modern English?
Or, what about the complete other end of the formality spectrum? Think about super informal expressions like gonna and wanna. Are these actually widely used? I mean, sure, we hear them literally all the time in casual conversation. But how does an expert prove that? How do they measure it without just guessing? They need a reliable, totally objective method to figure out exactly what is happening in the English language today.
Well, the secret to solving these mysteries is authentic language data. You see, as linguists, our core interest is understanding how language is actually used by real speakers and writers in everyday life. So instead of relying purely on, say, personal intuition or some strict set of grammar rules from a dusty textbook, linguists find their answers by examining authentic data. They look directly at real, living examples of language to see what's really going on.
And this brilliantly illustrates an absolutely crucial distinction in the whole field of linguistics. Basically, we've got two very different approaches here. On one side, you had the prescriptive approach, and that focuses entirely on the rules about how language should be used. But then, on the other side, we have the descriptive approach, and this one focuses on observing how language is actually used. It's literally the fundamental difference between enforcing the rules versus just observing reality.
So to study language descriptively, linguists need a very specific tool, and it's called a corpus. Now, a corpus is simply a giant collection of authentic language samples. We're talking massive databases filled with books, newspapers, transcripts of conversations, websites, basically any form of real-world communication. Plural, we call these collections corpora, and they act as this incredible, massive window into how we actually speak and write.
Having access to these corpora, it completely shifts our mindset. Today, we've got these amazing corpus tools that allow us to just quickly explore all these authentic examples. And it causes this huge shift in how we approach things. Instead of playing the grammar police and constantly asking, wait, is this correct? We get to act like curious scientists, just letting the data speak for itself.
So instead of obsessing over strict correctness, we can start asking way more fascinating, analytical questions. Like, how common is this expression, really? Where is it used most often? Does it pop up more in formal or informal contexts? And just practically speaking, how do real speakers and writers actually use it? Asking these kinds of questions allows us to really map out the true reality of human communication.
Now, what's really interesting about this comparison is that it brings us right back to our initial mystery. If we use these corpus tools to compare the words who and whom, we can easily uncover the reality of their usage. We discover that, yeah, while both absolutely exist in the English language, one appears way more frequently in everyday communication than the other. The descriptive data just hands us the definitive answer. And compiling all of these descriptive observations, it's not just some dry academic exercise. It gives us this really profound understanding of how language changes, how it varies, and how it actually functions in real-world contexts. For teachers and language professionals, having this perspective is incredibly valuable. It encourages us to look past those rigid rules and actually consider how language is being utilized by living, breathing, real people.
So, what's the ultimate takeaway for you from this explainer? Well, as you continue learning, you'll occasionally explore authentic language examples yourself. And the goal here isn't to turn you into a professional corpus linguist, not at all. Rather, the goal is to help you become a more informed observer of language and communication. You can actually practice making these observations, just like a linguist, in your own day-to-day life.
I want to leave you with a final, kind of provocative thought to consider today. As you go about your routine, really think about the language you hear, the things you read, and the words you use every single day. What kind of patterns do you notice out there in the real world? And do they actually match the strict grammar rules you learned back in school? Keep an ear out and keep observing, because, those are exactly the kinds of questions linguists absolutely love to investigate.